Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Living on Blockchain. Today, we are speaking to Aditi Chopra. We are thrilled to have her. She's a dynamic force in the Web3 space. She's joining us on this podcast. She has a lot of experience in terms of growth, community, and she's also a marketing expert. She has worked with CoinDCX. She has her own initiatives as well that help more women to get in the space called Super Women DAO. She's working on that. She also consults many projects. So, in this particular episode, we dive into the evolution of Web3 marketing and the strategies and how data driven growth is shaping projects left, right, and center. This was a very, very interesting conversation because we touched upon the meme coin phenomenon as well and how authenticity becomes the key to forging a good community. I can't wait for you guys to hear this. Let's deep dive right in. Hi, Aditi. Thank you so much for making the time to speak to me today. How are you doing?
Hey Darusha, thank you so much for having me on Living on Blockchain. I'm excited that we're finally gonna have a chit chat after knowing each other or at least being connected for a couple of years now.
Yeah, it's
Doing
been a
well.
long time.
There's lots of things happening in the market, as you must be
Yeah,
aware of. An
right.
entire political family just, trying to.
Dropped a meme coin and another one.
Yeah, it's like the entire family is doing meme coins. Aapka bhi, like his and his sons also, and family and all of that. So it's just been a little too overwhelming to sort of understand
Hmm.
because every day you wake up, there's a new thing, and then this constant FOMO of another chance of missing of making that generational wealth that I missed. So that's been sort of a very overwhelming sentiment in crypto for me. But otherwise, I am there's things happening on Superwoman side. There's something that I am planning and working on in terms of figuring out a plan for developer onboarding and looking at newer venues. And there's also some work. I'm helping out my dad with the family business. So yes, very much in crypto, sort of learning more at this point, experimenting more.
Hmm.
After I took a break from my last job at CoinDCX in October last year.
Right. Yeah. I think that is pretty much how any crypto journey goes, that you're constantly learning and unlearning and moving forward, even though, as you said, that do feel a sense of FOMO, that you've missed out on another chance perhaps at times. And yeah, but we'll get to that. We'll get to the meme coins bit. But for our listeners, let's set a little context. Tell us a little about yourself and how you got into Web3 and how you started a Superwoman DAO, and tell us a little about your job at CoinDCX as well.
Done, done. So, for me, I have been in crypto for about what three and a half years or more now. Like the overall time span that I've spent in this space, and I was working with fintechs in 2021, and I had just gotten out of EF's batch also, where they select a couple of founders and match them and then sort of fund them as well. And for me, the journey wasn't as intent driven as it was for a lot of people, that hey, we're gonna build an alternative, a better alternative to banking systems, and a lot of theories and a lot of philosophies that were there at that point. Thing is, I was already doing community before community was this really sexy vertical that a lot of people were interested in, because in the fintech startup FamPay that I worked, we were building it for Gen Zs, right? So
Yeah.
Discord, building community, building that sense of belongingness was very important for us, for the Gen Z populace to sort of relate with us as a brand. And at that point, while right after my FamPay experience when I was with EF, I just to get a better sense of how to build a startup, started consulting a few friends who were founders and who were building their startups and all, and that went well. And there was a bit of word of mouth. So then I got more clients, more startups that I could consult on non-tech side of things. And then while I was doing all of that, of course, community was an important part of the consulting that I was doing. It was also GTM, there was marketing, basically the full stack, double A, triple R sort of a funnel. And at that point, a Web3 startup reached out to me. It's called Mesha. They have pivoted into something new, which is more on the lines of crypto AI now. But they were building a DAO tool at that point, and they're like, "Hey, could you help us consult on community? How should we go about it? What should be our objective of this community? Why would people want to join this and all?" And I just realized that it wasn't very different. The fundamentals are very same, whether Web2, Web3, because you're eventually communities of people, right? It's not like people have entered a new era and something. New technology has come in. So I thought, why not? And one of the crucial reasons was that I was getting paid thrice right? For almost the same amount of work that I would be doing for Web2 startups.
Right.
And that was my reason. So it was sort of very transactional, to be honest. It wasn't driven by a mad philosophy or a crazy belief that, hey, this space it's not scammy and sort of blow up and it's the new technology and all of that. I didn't have those grand beliefs in my mind at that point. But once I entered, I'm like, okay, wow, it is. Because as a community builder, I felt like, oh, there's a lot more for me to do here, to experiment. And community truly has value just beyond marketing here. It is what most people and most projects start with and then succeed because of. So that drove my interest. And then I started studying, learning more, got involved, started attending events like all of us in our initial, stages in crypto sort of go in. And that's when I realized that even after attending a couple of these events and trying to talk to people in this space, it was comparatively still a very smaller community back then. Right now, I think we still have 1,000 people, 2,000 people in Bangalore that would be in crypto. At that point, there were just those known 50, 60 people who were there everywhere. We were all meeting with each other only. And that's when I realized that, hey, maybe I ended up in this thing, but I would find myself to be amongst the very few, like countable on my fingers, like 4 or 5 women, or sometimes hardly any, at these events, and virtually also in the discussions that were happening, founders that I was seeing were building and all of that. I wasn't meeting a lot of women. And just a very random afternoon idea one day that, hey, I've got a place, I can host 40 women. I just started, and then Super Team had just started and it was all the rage. So somebody, I don't know who, coined the word Super Women, and then the WhatsApp group was named that. And that's how Super Women started. And once the first event happened is when we truly realized that there's a lot of value in this information exchange that's happening. And then I sat down to figure out, hey, this is what Super Women's going to be about. This is what we're going to do. This is what a structure looks like for it. Superwoman has been largely a passion project for me, something that's not a breadwinner, something that I haven't done full time. I mean, I've done full time for a couple of months, but never prolonged periods. While I was building Superwoman, my consulting firm was acqui-hired by a US-based startup. So I had some time, worked on Superwomen and read and learned up and all. And then CoinDCX happened. So CoinDCX is building, when I joined, Opto was a much smaller initiative, a subsidiary where CoinDCX wanted to build a DeFi suite of products. And I was really interested in learning more about DeFi, and I thought, what better way than to stay close? But it's also being built by CoinDCX. So the team comes with the experience, the data, the understanding of how it has happened. So, of course, it was the best of both the worlds. I'm going to learn DeFi, and I'm also going to learn from some of the foremost builders in Web3 in the country. And that's how Octo happened. So I joined Octo as the community lead. And over the 1.5 years that I worked there, I became the head of community and events, looking at everything community at Octo and a few important parts of the community at CoinDCX. Because, of course, with Octo, there was a developer community now, there was a trader community, different types of campaigns and initiatives that we were looking at. Events became pretty core because it's a company that's looking forward to doing their TG very soon. So yeah, that was largely it. I headed the community and events there. Lots of learning, lots of interesting, intersections where I would be also trying to figure out, hey, I am employed officially by a centralized exchange, and I'm constantly marketing and selling a DeFi product because DeFi's biggest claim to fame is we are not CeFi.
Right.
So lots of understanding in terms of branding, how such products would really work, how would you build a community, how would you build a trust in people who are coming from a very CeFi focused scenario, now coming to DeFi and exploring it. They're coming for the monetary incentives of it, not for the fundamentals of what DeFi offers, the decentralization and security. So lots of, I've just mentioned very umbrella learnings, but yeah, a super intensive experience there as well. But then when dad needed my help for his business, and I felt that, I want to look at community in a bit of a more advanced, more evolved sort of a way. And it was also time for me to sort of take a break, step back. Also, November 2024 was extremely crucial for everyone who wanted to trade and spend time understanding the markets. So yeah, then I departed from CoinDCX. And that's largely me and my journey in crypto.
Awesome. That's quite a varied journey, and obviously you've been very, very big on community, which takes me to meme coins, and I will touch upon that in a minute. But can you tell me a little more about Superwomen DAO, and what are the DAO elements that are a part of Superwomen, and also what are the kind of initiatives that you guys have, and how can perhaps fellow builders get in touch with you guys and be a part of this DAO?
Got it. So with Superwoman, honestly, we've gone a lot of back and forth. We're trying to figure out that to what extent do we want to be a DAO by definition, right? Whether it be the governance, whether it be the multi-sig wallet, whether the incorporation, Wyoming incorporation that we do, or whether it be how the financial incentives are really working in place, how active the voting is, how the proposals are coming in, all of that. We've experimented in little ways. And what we realized was early on, even when we did not have Snapshot and a lot of DAO tech in place for us, there were simple poll apps, voting apps, and we experimented trying to understand people's opinion and see what sort of participation in ideating campaigns that we do in the direction that Superwoman goes in. What sort of contribution and activity will we see participants? Early on, for the first few months, it was there. Definitely there. There was a lot of interest. There were a lot of activities. There was a lot of onboarding happening, and it wasn't just because of the efforts or things that we were doing. It was significantly also because there was this inherent hype, right? And then we realized that all the DAO elements that we're looking at, our community is not ready yet. It's not at that point yet where we can say that we sort of have all those proposals and all the tech in place and all the governance in place, because we realized that people were more interested in the non-tangible aspects of it. They were, in a few months, the participation in terms of the direction of Superwomen, the initiatives and campaigns that we were doing wasn't happening as much, but the participation in the initiatives of the campaigns that we were doing was there. So that proposal or the governance participation sort of was fading out, but the participation in the activities were there. So we realized, okay, we are better placed to grow and work as a community to eventually reach a point where we can say, yes, our members are sort of working in tandem, where there's contribution on both sides of things, and we can actually make it as decentralized as ideally possible. And then we can also look at financial incentives or community token, all of that. In all of this process, I was hugely inspired by how Super Team has built their community, right? They are a DAO, but the only on-chain element about that community is that the NFTs that every members have loaded up with points every month. Everything else is happening in a logical, functional manner, but off-chain, because it's important to first create that critical mass of member contributors, right? You can't just have contributors, you can't just have members. You need people who will build things and who will then participate in those things and learn out of those things as well. So try to incorporate those things, and that's how we've been in our DAO, like in the definition of DAO journey. I think we're still pretty early, but want to first focus on build that community base, and then eventually look at, hey, now you're ready to be a DAO, because there was a certain hype about DAOs and DAO tools and all, but it all fizzled out pretty quickly because the use case couldn't fit in with the speed of everything that was getting built. DAO Lens was by a friend. We explored that. There were a couple of other products. Mesha was also looking at DAO tooling at that point, the first startup in Web that I. But none of it would fit in with the needs that our community had. In terms of initiatives, we've been pretty experimental there as well. Superwoman started with the idea that, hey, two things have to happen. New women should be brought into this space. Brought, I mean, no, not by hand holding or something, but if someone shows an interest, at least educate them that, hey, this entire space exists and there's just so many things that you could do here, explore here, be your own person, all of that. And then the second was women who are already there in Web3. They should actually advance. They should actually get access to more opportunities, to learnings, to frameworks, to tech, to people, all of that, so that they are sort of climbing the ladder. With these two things, we realized that given the core team that's there, like the council that largely does a lot of things, we're total 9 people. Only one of us was tech. And we realized, okay, there are enough communities that are focusing on the tech part of it. Let's focus on the collaboration, the investments, the education part. So these were the three important tenets initially to begin with. Take in an investments experiment that we tried didn't quite work out because we couldn't, truth be told, couldn't find the sort of founder quality in the cohorts that we had that VCs would look at eventually, right? These are great builders, but they still needed some support, some incubation and acceleration and collaboration to reach a point where it would where they would become VC investable, at least at that stage. So we toned that down a little bit and then took collaboration and education a notch up, for which in 2021 and 2022 we hosted 60 to 65 events, different type of events, from networking to women only to educational sessions to small hackathons, all of that. And that sort of became our IP, right? The collaboration aspect. IRL and virtually through the webinars and all that. In this process, we also worked with L'Oreal, Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women Entrepreneurs Program, created the curriculum for them. Sort of our Superwomen members became teachers and learning buddies for the people from those programs. Superwomen was also invited for World Economic Forum Davos, where I went as speaker to talk about this initiative and why it's important to look at diversity in Web3 from the very start or the initial phases of Web3. That happened, worked with a lot of projects from the big wigs like Polygon, Solana, Monad, Base, to lots of small startups, communities, all of that. And that's largely been our thing where we've realized. And with Sanctuary, which was this non-tech, women-only hacker house that we did in Bangalore, we realized, okay, this is a more focused IP that we could actually continue because we think we're very well placed to look at the non-tech aspect of learning. And then all of this, we also changed our positioning from being women only to women focused, because women can't really grow in silos. As mentors, as partners, as fellow learners, we need all the meritorious people, like regardless of their gender, to come into that common space.
Right.
So yeah, that's largely been what's happening. And going forward, there are a few things that we're looking at. One is sort of scaling Sanctuary, doing more editions focused around conferences. Second is learning, but more hands-on learning. Rather than looking at blockchain one-on-one, we want to look at having people enter, more hands-on aspects in terms of trading, in terms of understanding indexes, in terms of understanding meme coins and all of the current narratives that are out there, rather than looking at building a historical perspective for them. And the third thing which is sort of something that we want to look at and what we want to do better, is looking at documentation and sort of resources and content repository building, which is community contributed and community built, but it's also very dynamic because a lot of learning resources that you see right now, they were all built in the 21, 22 aspects of it, repositories and learning and all, and we want to create a more dynamic effort which the entire community participates in. So yeah, that's the plan.
Awesome. I think, you made a few good points here that obviously women cannot grow in silos, and, it needs to be a more cohesive, integrated approach that kind of does the trick. But it's good to create these special places as well, so that, there is the right amount of representation, because I've been around for a while, and I think, the number of women obviously has increased, but, there is still such a long way to go. You go to these meetups or any meetup in any city, I think they are plagued by the same problem. It's mostly a sausage fest, mostly guys, and there are no females. And I do think that it happens because of two things. Perhaps women are a little diffident and they don't step out as much for these meetups because, it's like a vicious cycle because they don't see more women. So lack of representation becomes a problem. And then obviously there are also fewer women, who are in this space. In general, I think in Web3 there are fewer builders and then even fewer women. So it's great that, you guys are doing such commendable work in this particular area because it's very close to my heart as well. Now I want to talk a little about community, because I feel community has become, like you said, it's become like the sexy word and everybody wants to latch onto it. Everybody wants to build a community, do this, do that. But I still feel that the community aspect is completely broken in Web3 because the understanding of community is somehow, engaged community mostly refers to a community that has some financial incentive perhaps associated with that said community, which is not a bad thing. But I feel feel that having an engaged community is a little more cohesive than that. What are your thoughts?
No, 100%. I mean, what has happened with the definition of community is that everybody sort of started taking a very universal idea of it when it's not true, right? The idea of community is and has to be very, very, so sorry for the door, but has to be extremely objective driven, right? Now there's a brand that's building a community. There's certain elements, there's certain aspects that they will promote, and they're building it around their product, their token, and all of. Then there are all of these learning communities where people who are part of that community, they're not just seeking knowledge, they're also becoming givers first. That's there. Then there are communities which are not defined by fundamentals that, hey, we are bringing these people or this is the host or something. It's just defined by a common objective or a token holder. Like, if you look at getting the name, all of these NFT communities, right? It's not like these people know each other, they're constantly engaging with each other, they're building the commonality between them that they hold a similar asset and they all want to see it grow. So there are different objectives around which communities get formed, and it's if you put it very simply, it's that aspect of belongingness. That do I feel that I have a part to play in making this project, this token succeed, and then I reap benefits out of it. Those benefits don't always have to be financial, right? If I am part of a community and I end up learning something and I end up at a good job or building something, I have reaped the benefits of the community. And what has happened is because early on, and to this date, communities is a great way for new people to enter Web3 and for people in Web3 to enter different fields. Like today, I don't know a lot about Deepin, but if I want to, I will try to first find some of the people in this space, the community where the conversations are happening, go try to first see what's being talked about, and then eventually get involved. So it's become a great onboarding mechanism also. And that's why it's become sexy and, sort of omnipresent for every project and all of that. But engagement, when we talk about that requires different sort of efforts. You're putting people together in a common space, whether it be virtual or whether it be IRL. It's not going to spark conversations or interest on its own, right? It needs to be driven. There needs to be elements which are bringing people back from digressing, constant content and discussions that keeping it engaged, enough product updates, product movements, token movements for people to not lose interest. And most importantly, at the core, with Superwoman also I realized that it's that sense of friendship. With Superwoman it's friendship, but mostly it's belonging. That, hey, do I like chilling with these people? Do I like hanging out on this Discord? Because I feel vibes are immaculate. Now that's an intangible aspect, but it is very true, right? Sometimes I look at some communities and I'm like, what's really happening in them? What's the hype about it? Beta Baddies is doing wonderful as a community. There's a lot of conversation, there's a lot of engagement, and I try to understand, hey, what's happening at the core of it? But then that not every with that, hey, this centerpiece, and we all have to go and talk about it and build on it and proliferate it in each other, and then sort of realizing that there's value in being part of something, in belonging sort of with something. With Superwoman, I realized for women, not just the stranger aspect that, hey, I don't want to go to strange places, like newer places and where most people are going to be strangers and there are hardly going to be any women. Once you make a few friends, next time you'll probably end up checking with your friend, hey, there's this event happening by this L1. Are you going? You're going, I'll come as well.
Yeah.
So that happens a lot. And I think that's the feeling that communities, if they do it right, initially instill. And largely that's when the interest in the product, the skin in the game, the element of members contributing, all of that follows through. So yes, building community is one part, but building an engaged community which constantly goes on requires a lot of iteration and requires the admins and participating people to constant things. And there's activity happening, and then there are enough wins. Any community will not thrive if the members, if the contributors, if the lurkers, they're not seeing enough wins, right? That's extremely crucial. So even some of the communities that you'll see that have survived through the last 3-4 years are communities that have iterated themselves, that have grown, that have become structurally stronger, better. There's a very good ratio of new members joining in versus members getting churned or members becoming inactive. And most importantly, there's constant new activity happening, which keeps it engaged. So I think that's where the effort.
Yeah, I think you're right. It has to be.
Sorry, Risha, I lost you there. I can't hear you.
Yeah. I think I couldn't hear you either. I think there was some network issue.
Mhm.
I was saying I completely agree with what you are saying in terms of the community being engaged and the kind of value that it can provide. It doesn't necessarily have to be financial incentive. It can be something as simple as getting like a sense of belonging, perhaps making a few friends on the way, and feeling a little less alone, perhaps while you're on this journey.
And if you do good, financial incentives do come in, right? Like, I mean, with
Yeah.
Super Team, I've seen that early contributors got massive airdrops from Bonk and Jito when it happened because they were involved in the process. They consulted, they'd helped out, they'd created that thing, right? With Superwoman, also, we saw that, when we did the Sanctuary first edition right, or right to a certain extent, now there's support, there's better incentives that we can provide for the next initiative that happens, whether it be participants or partners or organizers, whatever. So it may not be there from day one, but it eventually comes. It becomes
Hmm.
an of the contribution that that community or the impact that that community is creating outside of it and for its own members.
Right. Yeah. I think you've got that right. Now, I want to touch a little upon meme coins because meme coins often tend to gain traction due to
Yeah.
community enthusiasm. How do you sort of see their role evolving in Web3 space? What are your thoughts about it? Do you think this is good for this space? Do you think that this is more of a short-term game? Like, what is your take?
So I think what has happened in Web3 marketing is right. We've had the quest maxing phase, we've had the airdrop phase, then it evolved into the points phase, and then the whole meme coin narrative came in, which is sort of a GTM sort of a tactic, but it evolved into a bigger narrative because utility conversations never made into the picture, and people and the idea that meme coins never professed for it made people very comfortable. They knew that this is a scheme where I look at better financial incentives, and meme coins also, in my opinion, apart from a few of them, they don't have extremely engaged or community that would, do or die sort of situations. Because there has just been so many meme coins, they're getting churned out every single day. Initially, it was just Solana. Then Solana was there, then Bait, then Ton had some meme coins. And then every L1 realized that, hey, to get that initial TVL and to get that initial people getting onboarded, we need to have meme coins. And then a lot of focus of the projects, of the teams, of the traders went in that direction, which made it bigger than a lot of people would have estimated it to be. But as an individual in this space, I do, at some point will arise questions around, hey, okay, now I hold this token, but what do I do with it? Like, what's the utility of this meme coin that I have right now? And which we've seen started happening in the AI space and the AI crypto tokens, right? With AI
Right.
16Z starting as sort of a meme coin, and then realizing that, hey, now that we have this market cap and all of this interest, we can actually build upon it. All the conversations that are happening around Shiba and Doge actually trying to figure out utility and because now they have that market cap. So it sort of reverse engineered the process where they got the volumes first, and now they're realizing what can we do with this? What can we build for all of these holders who are already there? So in my mind, it's still rare. It's not something like, hey, we built a ZK-proof technology, which is in the initial trenches right now, which will evolve and become a very important core aspect of it. I still don't see meme coins, and this is a personal opinion, as a core aspect of the crypto industry. To me, it still is a lot like all of those play-to-earn models and the to-earn models that had come in, right? Which was all the rage at one point and sort of fizzled out there. Now, you won't see a lot of conversations around play-to-earn and right-to-earn and do to like XYZ to earn. So somewhere down the line, we'll realize that this field will also be saturated when the question is like, hey, now what do I do with the meme coins that I hold? What is this project up? Where does the constant liquidity really come in? Because it's also sort of far removed from VCs, from investors and all, which is a great thing because it's comparatively more decentralized from day one as opposed to any project. But when these questions keep coming up, some of the meme coins which will actually build those utilities, and then their distribution will gain value out of it, and some of them will just fizzle out like a lot of other things sort of have.
That's an interesting take. That some of them will be able to reverse engineer and figure out what utility to give their coin, and some of them will fizzle out. My perspective on this has been very clear. I think that there is a demand in the market, but demand is there because, perhaps people don't understand the nature of this technology deeply. And this seems to be like a quick get rich kind of scheme that, that they are able to play
Generate
around with it.
wealth.
Yeah, exactly.
Money
Generational wealth. Yeah, that particular carrot is right there.
money. Yeah. It's
Yeah. So
superficial. It's very
yeah.
short-term interest driven because meme coins also do operate and have worked well because of the echo chambers that it has created, right?
True.
Out of the 100 people talking about a meme coin, if you really look into that's of it, you'll realize 5 to 10 are actually only invested. The others are not invested. It's just cool to talk about it, and in some sense, it's also easy to talk about it for a lot of folks. Because it's not a very evolved technology. It doesn't require the sort of building skills that you would need. Now you have Pump.fun and you have Clanker and all of this, which has made it extremely easy. So you realize just very common things that people would relate on. There were meme coins. There was this whole dog meme coins and then this whole cat meme coins era. And I was like constantly questioning like why? Why is this random 100th cat related token getting all of this market cap and what's driving this? But I think what was really driving this was people sitting on Rex Screener getting in early at that 50K, 100K volume and then selling and that creating that little short-lived buy-sell pressure, honestly.
Yeah, like you said, I think it is easy to talk about. It is not something that requires a lot of deep understanding of the technology. In my personal opinion, I feel that this is perhaps not the best way to brand the industry. I think we already have like a perception problem as it is, and this does not help with getting more people
absolutely.
to be actively involved.
Because it's making us a very grifter industry, no? That
We look like a bunch of grifters. We look unserious, right? Like you have to take yourself a little seriously as well. Yeah,
100%. So it is being looked as this gambler and grifter industry, and then people talk about all of these massive philosophies, but where truly is all the action happening? It's with meme coins. And lately, you will see that some of the early builders call that out as well. That hey, this is not what we as an industry started or what we want to become. So let's not. But then it's just a financial incentive thing. Whatever's gaining traction becomes sort of the holy grail of the moment. Without looking at hey, what does this mean for us as an industry in the future? An industry which is supposed to build strong utility, strong use case applications to actually make lives easier. Because I don't think any meme coin has made anybody's life easier. It may have made a few people some money, but it hasn't solved for anything.
Yeah, exactly. So I also don't seem to I don't have a very favorable opinion because in general, I think that this is not good for the industry. But some people would say that, okay, this is bringing in some kind of adoption. I would disagree. I think that, we are as it is battling a perception problem being thought of as a completely, the entire tech being equated with and as a speculative instrument. So I don't think this helps us. And I also feel that, a lot of people are gonna lose big and like they did perhaps with the Trump token as well. Before the inauguration, the Trump token was launched and then the Millennia token was launched. And, that particular, the earlier one lost a lot of its value almost in a few hours.
Losing is also being glorified as regionalism. That, if you're reckless, if you're losing money, if you're being reckless with your investments, if you're buying into tokens without really knowing much about them, then hey, this is personality. So it's being glorified in a certain way.
But that's like glorifying stupidity.
Yeah, you're saying that hey, what you did this, you were brave enough to go into it, but not realizing that this was borderline stupid. Yes, because you really you're looking at a financial instrument, and you're supposed to look at financial investments or any such thing or trading with a certain lens, coming from a place of information, coming from a place of analysis and knowing. And here, none of that is happening. So that's risky, and that's the thing that every time things like this happen, we create a perception exactly opposite of what we as an industry would want in the long term.
Exactly. That is why I don't feel very favorable towards this. Yeah.
and adoption also. Anyone who says to me that hey, meme coins are bringing the adoption, I'm like, the adoption is happening with the wrong idea in mind because you're giving them the wrong idea of crypto industry. The moment they lose their money and they don't make money as quickly as possible, they will not find any interest to stay and build in this industry because they've not seen that. They came for the wrong reasons, and when the wrong reasons sort of reach at an endpoint of those, they will exit faster than they entered, and they'll probably take a lot of people whose belief has been broken in the process. So that adoption we just don't need that kind of adoption because it's for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I think we kind of aligned there. And now, I want to touch upon this entire Bhai Cabal and the Bhai cultural phenomenon in the Indian Web3 space. There's been a lot of, like, I've seen a lot of tweets, a lot of content being generated around it. Again, this was something that I had written a little about, and I again think that this is sort of not inclusive, and it seems very, very superficial, and perhaps again not the right way to go about doing things. But again, what is your take on this?
I think that it all evolved from, you remember a couple of months ago there was this time that Indians were getting a lot of hate, and
Hmm.
not in the Web3 industry. This was happening because a lot of Indians were being we were being put in important leadership positions in the world
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
industry. They were getting their entry in important political positions with Kamala Harris and all of those, and that's where the conversation started, where that Indians are sort of coming in and overtaking the crucial American these spaces and all of that, and that's where the whole Indian aid began. And then, of course, as any tech industry, crypto industry is also a subset of it. It's sort of entered there as well. And then I don't even know who started it, probably. And then Sandeep also was one of the initial people who professed for the Bhai alignment. And then it just started as an emotional movement. Similar movements were happening at that point with the brunette and blondie and all of that.
Yeah.
And the Indian community just picked up to it. So initial few people thought, okay, that let me put up this idea. And then a lot of people, I wouldn't say it was herd mentality, maybe taken as the wrong word, but it was a lot of people following someone without realizing that, hey, what does this have to do? What's the long term goal of it? So in the short
Yeah.
term, it's all about helping each other in very custom way. That that there's a telegram, a bhai comes and asks that, hey, I want help with this, and then someone will pop up. But that's generally what I have seen in any community group: the initial traction, the initial energy, which eventually is up, because all of these are builders. Everybody has their own things to look at, and then the activity may not be as there. The moderators won't be able to help as much. I hope that it goes on and eventually becomes, because then the whole Behen Ne Bola and all of those things were also started. A group was made for it. But I was like, what is this group supposed to do? Because is this yet
Yeah.
another Telegram group with women in it, WhatsApp group with women in it? Because I have that problem where there are way too many groups, and if I want to collaborate, it becomes a little bit difficult. And to keep all of these individual pockets engaged, you're making it difficult for people, because they'll never know where to contribute and where to become an active member.
Right.
Sort of. So rather than all of these little pockets popping up, if there was a way for all of them to come and collaborate together without losing their identity, I think that would have helped a lot more. Because everything that the whole Bhai Ne Bola movement or the Bhai alignment is supposed to do, we've had communities, we've had initiatives to do exactly that. Maybe it's that current vibe that's getting it traction, and I hope if it's truly about supporting builders, it continues and it happens. So in my mind right now, I don't see it as a very important movement that will truly get more Indians or more support for Indians, not at least at this stage. But I do think that it's also harmless. That, it may not have repercussions, or it may not have that ripple effect of harming something really. I do think that, I mean, for them, the idea of Bhai is, it's a gender neutral word and all. So I think it's too early to even look at the inclusivity aspect of it. If it is able to help support a few people, and if those frameworks really come out, processes really come out that, hey, this way a builder can be helped, this way a founder can be helped, and this is what we did and all of that. And if that can be reciprocated into the larger audience, wonderful. But at this stage, it does feel like, the initial enthusiasm and momentum that every community and every movement sort of starts with. But it's to be seen how long it'll continue. So it's harmless for
Right.
me. I don't think it's become crucial yet.
Right. Okay. So, what point do you feel that a community's movement or any kind of idea reaches that inflection point? Like, how do you define it? I think this is a very subjective question for any community builder, but because you have been so entrenched in community building, I would love to understand from you, at what point does a community really become substantial, and you would think that it's really been able to make a mark or create a dent?
So there are a couple of aspects, right?
Hmm.
One is sort of reaching a certain critical mass, right? And I'm not saying that a community always has to become big. No. When I say a critical mass, as in at a point where the community can sort of, in it's always sort of self-sustain also, right? Because I have largely seen communities which are not focused or built around one or few people do better in the long term, right? With Superwomen, I face that sometimes because I feel like that it sort of grew and got built initially around me, and that's why the next thing that I want to personally do is create enough or is have enough co-builders with me, Superwomen co-builders with me, where the dependency on me is never becomes a hindrance, right? There are times when we're doing Superwomen initiatives because largely I'm the one who's looking at partnerships or sponsorships or the core idea of what we're going to be doing next. I become that person when where it gets dependent on me, and if there's delays on my end or if there's some sort of a thought process from my end that goes wrong, it does impact. There's sort of a ripple effect sometimes, and I think that that's with most communities, at least in the ones that we see in the vicinity. They're all built around one or few people, and they haven't reached that self-sustaining critical mass. Now that could be 15 people also, right? 15
Yeah.
builders who all think that, hey, if this person's not available, I can do this initiative. And this person's good at this person can teach the members this, I can teach them this, I can do this, I can host this, all of that. So I think that that's an important stage for a community to reach, to become crucial, to become consequential, to become important in the larger scheme of things. The second also is we can all start with vibes and getting good people together and all, but eventually a community has to figure out what they stand for, right? And who are they doing? Because community is not like a product where you need to know what your member persona is. What are these people looking for? Because you try to become everything for everyone, you're nothing for no one. And that a lot of communities have. They started with this, but they're like, oh, let us do this. We got this opportunity. Let me do an event also for this. We got this opportunity to promote them and for their token launch. Let us do this also. And then no common message, objective, what is this community built for comes around. And a lot of times when I say this, people are like, oh, then you centralize. I'm like, no, like decentralize also has a common objective. Uniswap also has a common objective. But is as decentralized as it is. Ethereum also has an umbrella objective. People at least know what are they getting aligned with and what is this movement, this project, this product is all about and what are we looking to achieve with this. Decentralization is everybody sort of getting together to achieve this. So I think that sort of at one point or the other needs to get defined and needs to get a little bit structured. The third thing is, and I am a believer of that, is that there needs to be processes and frameworks to align the community right? I mean, a lot of communities, a lot of new members will come in. They will just feel clueless. They will not know, now that I've entered this community, attended their event, or maybe even bought a token and joined their Discord or Telegram. Now what to do? What do I ask? Can I ask this question? Am I going to make a fool of myself? So creating that environment, a very welcoming environment, and also creating those rails for those people that, hey, a new member has come in. First few steps that they should be taking, and because once you've taken that person there, right, then you've sort of increased their chances of staying in the community, of contributing to the community, and of deriving value. This experiment happened with Facebook, where they're like, anyone who comes on Facebook, and Facebook is a very big community only at the end of the day. It's a publishing platform for its incentives, but it is a community because to this date, their most success, what really works on Facebook is Facebook groups. Timelines don't work. We don't use our individual Facebook profiles. Whatever it's being used for still is groups. And they did this initial experiment where they said that, hey, when a person comes into Facebook, logging in is not a matter of activation. When we truly consider that person activated is when they have made 7 friends. It doesn't have to necessarily mean that they have sent out 7 friend requests or they have received. It's when they have made 7 friends, because now that little network or that little flywheel has gotten activated from them, that network flywheel, that they will want to come back again. They have friends who updates they'd want to get and all of that. So with community also loosely put, you have to have an activation journey for a member. You have to know that, hey, at this point, this member could become activated and I have to help them reach that point. I have to create a welcome experience. I have to create that initial educational experience. I have to get them aligned with what this community is about, because otherwise all of your engagement channels will end up becoming phishing channels or spamming channels. And this is something that I can bet my money on that 99% communities suffer with,
Right.
because numbers are not self-moderated. And the
Mm.
fourth important part, which is self-moderation. So initially when I talked about self-sustaining, the other thing is, once members are aligned that, hey, this is what this community is to achieve, that maybe we all build together, that maybe we all support a project together, that maybe we are holders of a common token together, that maybe we are a community that educates other people, like Super Women, which is sort of a collaboration regional community. Then there's Developer DAO, which is largely about helping builders and developers and all. Then there are project communities, there are Polygon guilds, and then there's Aptos summer schools, all of that. Once members know what they're aligned with, what this community is for me, what my giver role here and what my taker role here is, they sort of become self-moderated as well, which creates a higher exchange value. Then they will not end up senselessly shilling things and promoting. Then they will actually engage in conversations. They will actually try to help each other out. They will actually realize the value of building with each other and all. And that's where a community truly has, broken out into its useful form. Then these four things that come to my mind, which would say that, hey, now a community has broken into a point where the initial value has been established, and now it can look at scaling. A lot of communities from day one look at scaling.
Right.
How many members do I have? And this is something, including myself, that I have also done, that I have also in my learning process figured. And then I realized it will not matter if I have 5,000, 50,000 or 50 women and super women. If amongst the 5,000, I can't say at the end of the day that these 50 women were impacted. But in a cohort of 50, even if I have a cohort of 50 and all 50 are getting impacted, then there's better value that I've created. That's why I was saying that actually, I felt like with that smaller cohort of 30, 35 women, we created more value for those women than for the larger super women community that we would have created through our other initiatives. Because it was more intense, there was more alignment, there were more frameworks and incentives in place to get them to do the right thing, to actually motivate them to do the right thing and stop them from digressing and not have it like a shiller tool or a promotional tool or a very some sort of that, that pseudo, yeah, we are for this sort of an emotion or sentiment there.
Right. I think you've given a lot to sort of chew on, and I'm sure that there are a lot of community builders who will listen and will have a lot to think about after listening to this particular answer. And that kind of reminds me that, we are sadly running out of time, but I would like to ask you two more questions before we wrap this up. One is, what is your personal opinion on where the industry is heading? Where do you see it going? What are the kind of niches that you think would do really well, say, the next 12 to 18 months?
So I think there are two directions, right? A larger majority, the quantity of the industry sort of going in the direction of meme coins and this constant yapping and taking every little milestone and then blowing it out of proportion, right? Because I do agree that yes, the leader of the free world sort of launching his own token meant something. It was an important milestone, but probably it isn't as big as it has been made, in my opinion, because nobody still knows if it's gonna bump or dump in, maybe not in the near future, but at some point. And what's really the use of it? What is that saying? That is it saying that now the supporters are also, they have some skin in the game, or they have some sort of an incentive to actually stand up for Trump or to support whatever he's doing, because whether we like it or not, he is a bit of a grey character. So I think there's this one part of the industry which is blowing a lot of things out of proportion, right? And things which is not the core of what crypto really stands for. Because yes, ETFs are great and all, but also thinking that institution entry sort of means that we are going a little bit again towards the whole banking aspect of it. Then there's this small part of the industry where not as small, but comparatively small to this bigger bubble crowd, where true innovation and building is happening, where the conversation around bad UX has actually reached a point where people are building apps and people are looking at ways to solve for that. And when I was working at Octo and when we were talking about chain abstraction initially, I would also question it a lot. And a lot of people in the team members would question that, hey, is this just a new narrative that we're focusing on to have that relevant mind share or that momentum of that, or have that moment mind share, or are we really doing something about it? And then once I was more and more involved, I realized, no, actually their products have been built. The gas station mechanism that Octo has is actually very novel, because it has helped me so many times. The mobile mobile native perps, the mobile native decks that Octo built was truly helpful because that got me into futures. Because maybe I wouldn't have understood things directly if I'd got into Hyperliquid in a web browser format. And building those native rewards up, there was merit to it. So I'm like, yes, there is part of that industry which is looking at these important problems to solve. The other thing is a lot of Web2 companies which have the distribution, which have the power to drive the initial traction are also entering in, right? Whether it be Robinhood or Stripe or Sony or even Jio for that matter in India. Now, I don't know what Jio's incentives are because they've got the distribution. They could literally just be building a browser or a token, yet another thing without that level of innovation or those use cases. But that's what's happening. And that, what has that sort of put out there? That real users will sort of come in. Now, our technology can serve those real users or not is a different question. But yes, through these companies, these people are sort of coming in. In terms of narratives, like I said, I think the strongest useful narrative that's out there is crypto AI because I think they are very complementary. They support each other's building, right? Personally, I just sent in my application for a hackathon by Sequoia, which is consumer AI, and I'm looking at a AI-driven prediction market. So the idea there that, hey, when we're talking about financial incentives, the way crypto can do it, your fiat can never. And the way AI can support better insights, better decision making, and the ease of agents actually feels useful to me as a person because I see myself using it. I see myself trying out things. I'm seeing myself build these agents and all. Now, of course, there's going to be a lot of bad actors who are going to create agents for things which are going to be sort of in the long run not so helpful. The whole AI girlfriend and all of those aspects and therapy and stuff. I won't get into that. But I think the strongest narrative is AI and crypto. Also, at this point in my mind, one of the most useful narratives. DeFi is growing at its pace, but what Hyperliquid has sort of done, it's actually established that a good product without the need of a VC can truly build that billions of dollars of wealth, right? And it has gotten back the innovation that traders sort of wanted, the ease that traders wanted, the sort of liquidity and availability that traders wanted, the functionalities that they wanted. Because I don't know if you traded on Hyperliquid or looked at futures there and stuff, but there's actually a lot of interesting pairs. There's leverage that you could look at that a lot of other platforms don't offer. So it is an innovative product, and that has established that airdrop sort of, and when that airdrop happened, a lot of people sort of reverse engineered that why was it successful and all of those things. So I think DeFi is also having its moment in some ways or another. The other thing that I feel is I don't have an opinion as such a lot on RWAs because I do think that the adoption cycle has to come from people who have those real world assets or who are in that industry, and then they come and tokenize. Someone who starts with that, hey, I'm going to start with the tokenizing process and then look at RWA may not really work. So it's a matter of chronology there. Deepen is another thing that I think is a narrative that should and would pick up because there's lots of incentives in truly doing that. Like there's Wi-Fi Dabba, which is a Deepen startup. They're looking at public Wi-Fi networks and stuff. And that industry, if done right, does feel like a win-win situation for everyone for me because it's decentralized in the truest aspect. It's infrastructure, which is something which we can't not look at. And there are projects who are doing good work in building in it, with the right sort of traction and innovation that has to be built. Now, if I were to talk about narratives which maybe may not see a lot of products in, but I think they will really do well is one is group trading, which is if you read like a thesis of a lot of other VCs, they have entered into it that multiple people would want to come together in a group and trade together. So lots of such financial models will evolve, whether it be group trading or betting amongst friends powered by crypto that, hey, I sent Tarusha a bet that, hey, Tarusha, come bet with me on this thing. Information finance, which is just a notch above of what prediction markets do, also has a very strong thesis that companies, that people to actually get an opinion of what people think or what direction this thing will go in would more and more use these opinion trading and prediction market sort of platforms for their own benefit, which is companies putting out that, hey, will this happen? Will this not happen? And sort of that person bringing in that alignment of that financial incentive. Because otherwise, if my money is not on it, I could be saying anything under the sun. So I think those sort of models will evolve. And then, of course, we have social. social fire, which keeps having its moment every now and then. A friend.tech will come up, then something
Right.
else come up. But it's like these are little peaks in a larger peak that we will eventually see, because there was a time that Farcaster was being talked out about a lot. Then before that, there was a time when everyone was building on Lens and everybody was realizing the value of it. Then the activity sort of dipped. Again, more innovations and features will come in. So I think these are the narratives that will largely sort of prevail. At this point, I don't know where NFTs are really going or where they go, because in my mind, they feel like a good ancillary for loyalty. And unless loyalty really comes in, I don't see a lot of use case or a lot of value coming out of NFTs. But that might be a misinformed or uninformed opinion, because I haven't studied or looked at NFTs as much. I've literally only invested in 2 NFTs, or I have 2 NFTs. One was also a gift, and the other one I invested in across the board. The others that I have are just milestone NFTs. Largely. DAOs, again, I think they will be a function of first that organizational setups to really happen, and then DAOs becoming in. Because the initial idea that we had, which was of the ideal world, that hey, people want to have a say, people want to voice their opinions. Eventually, we realized that there were just so many things happening. There were so many proposals out there. There were so many of these statements that people had to take a stake on. People just loved doing that. Like, people didn't want to do that. They didn't have the kind of time, they didn't have the kind of expertise for actually their vote to matter. And they didn't even have the intent to really go out and then participate in all of that, which is what we saw with Meta Cartel and all of that, where they sort of became hedge funds, where people were like, hey, I've given you my money, now be a wealth manager and give me returns of that. The aspect of DAOs sort of fizzled out. So I think DAOs will see their moment again, but that'll sort of be driven by organizations, corporations sort of forming up, and then the foundation model. How you have Monad as a labs and then Monad as a foundation, and all of these L1s and L2s. The foundations will sort of evolve into DAO models, and that will work beautifully, because in my experience, I think where the DAO aspects works beautifully, in my little experience and knowledge, is Arbitrum DAO. With their short-term incentive and the long-term incentive programs that they have. The way the DAO proposals, the DAO governance, the activity, the multi-sig, the vote weightage, all of that is getting counted there, is closest to what I think our ideal DAO mechanics would be. So I think that thing will pick up, but it'll happen through the foundation route. So yeah, this is what I think.
Thank you for covering all the niches, and pretty much, I think, very good insights again in terms of what you said for DAOs, for NFTs, for deepen AI. I think AI is going to be one solid narrative in the coming days, definitely. So now, Aditi, because we are completely out of time, I would love to ask you this one question that I ask everybody who comes on the show. You're somebody who, you said it yourself that it was not with a lot of conviction that you entered this space. It kind of just happened. But you have been here for a while, and you're still building in this space. You do feel now that you have a strong conviction backing by your motivation, perhaps, to be building in this space. If you had to perhaps give advice to somebody who's dealing with a little bit of skepticism, and because I started this to change the perception of this space a little bit, what would be your advice to such a potential user or a potential builder, so that they can truly start living on blockchain?
So I would say that they should first of all know that this is a very fast moving, constantly evolving industry, right? Come in with that mindset that, not everybody is making money out of it. It's the same social media syndrome that we're suffering in Web3 also, right? Where you see people on Instagram living a wonderful life, traveling, weddings, this, that, fun, dinner dates, all of that. And then we think that everybody out there is living their life, and then what am I doing? It's not, right? Crypto also has that projection happening, and it's a lot of echo chambers and a lot of projections that are happening in the industry, where you'll constantly feel that there's this 19-year-old, there's this 13-year-old, there's this 20-year-old who's making so much money, they're millionaires, and they're all of these people, and I'm not doing enough. I think that mindset, how in investing you go with the mindset that this is the money I'm ready to lose, sort of something. So you actually have to come in with that informed, or at least a little bit of pinch of that salt, that hey, not everybody is actually making it. A lot of this very top of the superficial conversations that are happening, where everybody's sort of engagement farming, everybody's trying to show they are someone, they are getting those successes and wins and all. Because if you think that's the way, then you get into a rabbit hole where you either end up becoming a degen, or you just lose interest because you've lost enough money, or you just don't trust the people who are in this space, the rug pulls you've seen and all of that. Second thing is, also realize that it's early. I wouldn't say it's still very, very early, but it's early to actually found its crypto hasn't still had its eureka moment. It's had a lot of it moments, but not the eureka moment where we've actually blown out into an industry which has found its use case. The way it happened with the oil industry, the way it happened with the automobile industry, the way it happened with EV industry also, right? Where we realized that hey, we reached a tipping point where we need to have these, and government regulations were supporting it. People were adopting it. The technology, EV as a technology, became far superior than the incumbent technology that we had. So we have to realize that crypto is still in that early where we are experimenting and learning and doing all of those things. So there will be rough pulls, there will be bad actors, there will be things going wrong. And you need to know your own appetite to operate. And not everybody has to start with a $5,000 budget, and not everybody has to make that 5,000 into 100,000. You could just start at something as simple as I'm actually sitting with a friend who started with a $50 and now she's slowly growing and all of that. You could literally just start with that small amount, and you may not even have to put in your own money. You could earn your own money, participate in a bounty, do something, at least in my opinion, which is more rewarding, less risky as your initial few steps in the industry. Like go do a bounty, create a content, talk to people, something like that, rather than just going and putting in money in a trade where you don't know anything about it. Because there is content, there are communities, there are people who are teaching the little steps who would help you out. So yes, trading, everything has to be learned by experiment. But I think when you start your journey, which I tell a lot of other people also, that the best job to start in crypto is with community, because it doesn't require a set skill set. It actually gets you to meet a lot of people, lots of perspectives and all of that. You are talking, you are understanding the project because you have to represent it and all. So similarly, like that job, I say that take things which increase your chances of rewarding you more, rather than putting you in a position where you've risked a lot of things and you could lose things. And this is something that everybody can actually do it for themselves. It's not very difficult to do it. So just so that your conviction is getting built with the right things, and you're not getting completely bedazzled by the glitter and the glam of the industry, of the quick money making schemes and this and that. Yes, experiment with it. Don't be unaware about it. Like it said, right, eventually, that it's not like just completely shut your eyes to the wrongs. Be aware of all the wrongs, all the rights, all the grays, but try to optimize yourself in the right zones where the reward may be lesser, may be smaller, may not be financial to begin with, but your chances of having that reward are higher. And then eventually make your way into the trenches of things which become riskier over time and all of that, rather than just going straight up into that. This way, what helps is it also sort of, it doesn't take your skepticism away, but it justfully, rightfully tries to answer some of the questions or some of the inhibitions that you have, which have built that skepticism for you. That, hey, everybody here is a scammer, or a lot of projects that do just rough polls and all. Because when you are, say, reading up into it, draft content writing into it, getting yourself educated, joining a community, you sort of get examples of the goods that are happening as well. So I actually, and this may be an unpopular opinion, but I do say that, start as a lurker and do that obvious journey of lurker, contributor, member of the industry, not even just of any community, but a lurker of the industry, someone who's just looking from the outside, trying to absorb everything, not everything, but the little sparse of it, then becoming a contributor with things that optimize you to get rewarded first, and then eventually becoming a member where you are looking at the full throttle of the industry. This way, you also look at the tech that blockchain is, rather than just the financial system that crypto is. And I think as an industry, all of us want to reach a stage where people say that yes, blockchain is a tech stack or a technology, rather than just saying that hey, it's cryptocurrency and a financial system. We have to, if not reach, we sort of have to get out of the prominence of financial system to being a technology. And I think every person who is entering in, if they also have that thought that I have to look at this technology, I have to look at the people in it equally well, as much as looking at the financial incentives, their skepticism would sort of decrease over time, and they would have far more reasons to stick, to build, and to see long-term benefits for themselves.
Right. Yeah, I think that is great advice. That there is a certain journey associated with it. Take that journey. And obviously, do your own research. Do not play by just narratives. I think it's important. So, a wonderful way to end this episode. Thank you so much, Aditi, for making the time to speak to me today. This has been a lovely conversation, and I'm sure a lot of community builders and builders in general would be able to glean off a lot of from your insights.
Thank you so much, Darusha. I had a lot of fun because I think you posed some really interesting questions. They made me think as I was speaking, which were very evident in the pauses that I took. Because generally, I just go in a flow.
Right.
So close to you, because a lot of spaces or podcasts and all, they would ask me a lot of very generic questions that I've answered, and numerous people have answered before, right?
Yeah.
And I actually want people to sometimes ask my opinion also on some of these things, because I may not be that big of a trader. I may not have that big of a bag in meme coins, but I have an opinion, and it's informed enough because I do have a bag in alts and
Right.
in the blue chip tokens. So that's equally useful for me also, because it made me think, hey, what do I really think about meme coins? I mean, it's not like I haven't talked about it. It's not like I haven't yapped about it. But
Hmm.
what is my stance on it? If I were really up at 3 a.m. on that night, would I have brought into Trump? Is a question that I need to answer for myself as well.
Right.
Next morning, I
Yeah.
woke up and I also went around saying, oh, missed another opportunity to make generational wealth. But I
Yeah.
know there's a part of me, and there's a very big part of me that knows that even if I were up at 3 a.m., I wouldn't be comfortable enough to just ape in like that.
Yeah, same. I think so too. I mean, even though I think it was a pretty much similar journey. Like, you wake up in the morning and you feel like, okay, you missed another opportunity. But then again, would I have really perhaps capitalized on that opportunity is something to think about.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Aditi, once again. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Darusha.